Can't let him get away with that. I cannot let him get away with that. I'm sorry, Vaush. What proof do you have that the CDC lied? I have not seen anything about that. I would be broadcasting that with bright lights if I saw evidence of that. Never heard of the CDC lying under the Biden, or this was under the Trump administration, that we should not be wearing masks in order to prevent hysteria and to allow for first responders to get their hands on them. The CDC was saying, if I recall correctly, that you should make your own mask out of cloth. You should find a t-shirt or use like paper masks or whatever, because we want to save masks for first responders. We have a limited supply. We didn't want to rush, and we didn't want people to go hoard masks. We wanted people to be able to get them who needed them. So that was my understanding. I don't think they made a lie about that. They were very open about that.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that it was only after the fact that they acknowledged that the reason they recommended masks in the way that they did was because they were trying to save it for first responders, and that early on they did downplay the usefulness of masks so that they would restrict the consumption of the... it was Fauci, right? Let me see. Yeah, when they said masks are ineffective, Fauci, masks, April 2020. It was April 2020, right? One mask, Dr. Fauci. Was it February? When was this? Fauci defends mixed messaging on masks in early days of the pandemic. Yeah, wait, I'm literally correct right here, aren't I? Wait, hold on, look. Fauci went on to give a detailed explanation, reiterating that at the time, he and others were being told in White House COVID-19 task force meetings there was a shortage of masks. If we went around recommending masks, the healthcare providers who were putting themselves in harm's way every single day would not have enough. Well, he literally says it right here, now. Yeah, if they went around recommending masks, then healthcare providers wouldn't be able to get enough of them. So, yeah, this was clearly a decision motivated by trying to, secure a sufficient... They didn't recommend it, but they never lied and said they weren't effective in the disagreement. I think this is highly semantic parsing. If there's a pandemic going on and you don't recommend masks, that's an implicit acknowledgement that those masks aren't effective or useful in the fight against the pandemic. I remember there was a lot of early confusion in 2020 as to whether or not masks were even helpful in fighting off COVID. Yeah. I feel like it's a very semantic, like that doesn't address the substance of what I said at all. So I'm fine with what I said.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And later he admitted the reason he said this was to save the masks for, like, he admitted that, I think this is basically a lie. We had no idea of the transmission vectors back then. No, he is downplaying it to save masks for the healthcare providers. The reason he's using this language is so there could be more of them for the nurses and doctors and what have you. Yeah, like he's clearly downplaying it in a way that I think is pretty dishonest, Wasn't this before we knew how significantly it was transmitted via air? Well, it's mostly transmitted via droplets and stuff. Listen, this was the big fuck up from Fauci. They pulled the same line everywhere, not just the US too. I don't know whether or not that's true. The problem is that Fauci's messaging at the beginning of the pandemic was contributed to a huge amount of distrust and disinfo early on. His reasoning is fair. We had huge supply issues with masks. No, I'm aware of that. I'm not... Wait, I feel like you guys are misinterpreting what I'm saying here. Okay, I'm aware of that. I don't want to play any more of the 60 minutes clip because I feel like... I don't know if it's copyright.
You get some schmutz sort of staying.
You should think of healthcare providers needing, but when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill. The people who, when you look at the films of foreign countries and you see 85% of the people wearing masks, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not against it. If you want to do it, that's fine.
But it can lead to a shortage of masks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Downplayed it. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not sure
He
what
sounds
Vaush
like
is
a
referring to.
ghoul.
Does
He's
anybody
like a
know
billion
out
years
there what Vaush is talking about with the CDC lying? Because I think that's a very bold statement right there. And I want to be charitable to Vaush here. I like him. I want to be charitable.
I like you too.
But I think that's a stretch to say the CDC lied to us. You know, I really think the CDC tried hard to insulate themselves from politics under the Trump administration. And boy, they did their darndest. And I think they did a pretty good job, even under Trump. All right, let's keep.
The correction here that I think is meaningful is that it was Fauci and not the CDC. That's on me. Though I guess I don't really care. But in terms of like lying versus deliberately downplaying the usefulness of, yeah, no, that's still a kind of dishonesty.
Keep going.
Or nurses and other healthcare staff. That's what they were doing back then. Now, I don't think that was the best invocation of this dynamic, but what they were doing back then essentially was compromising an explicit health-based recommendation in favor of another practical concern, which is making sure that the people who needed PPE the most, medical workers, were the most likely ones to get it. So what we're seeing right now is the CDC has come out and they have said that you're reducing the quarantine time from 10 to 5 feet. Now,
Oh, wait, yeah. The CDC said it as well, yeah. At like the same time. Seriously, look up the research on masks before the pandemic. He was downplaying them because the research didn't support them. Jordan H., stop, okay? Fauci is too old to get a hard on. You're sucking his cock for no reason. You're not defending him from the point that you think I am, okay? Or that you think you are, okay? This isn't a fucking anti-Dr. Fauci thing. It is a fact that he downplayed the usefulness of masks so that more of them could be preserved for healthcare workers. He's literally said this. He's admitted this explicitly. Stop. Shut up. Holy shit. God. It's fine. It happens. I think Dr. Fauci generally is a pretty great public servant. My only point here is that there are practical and medical considerations that any healthcare expert has to take into has to take into account when making decisions. And this is an instance where the practical considerations overwhelmed the medical considerations in some elements, and it ended up backfiring somewhat. That's just part of life.
this influenced by, corporations wanting to get workers back on their feet as quickly as possible? Yes, it is undeniably, objectively, inarguably the case. There's no possible way to get around that. Of course that's the case. Did I say...
Okay, I agree with that this is to get workers back on their feet, right? That includes essential workers. So I do agree that this rule was used to get people back to their jobs, back to their lives, right? It's not just their jobs. This is to allow people to go outside, not quarantine, not isolate. Get back to your lives too, right? Like, if you know what I mean? If you're a volunteer at a cat shelter.
Well, with the COVID cases the way they are right now, we really don't need any more of that, but yeah.
Like, that's important. We need you back out there working at the cat shelter, cleaning out the litter boxes.
10 to 5 feet? I'm sorry, 10 days to 5 days. My apologies. I was thinking of feet because I'm a foot fetishist. So obviously it's influenced by that. However, there are sort of justifiable and unjustifiable extensions of that. Now, this is what we talked about before. Okay?
God, I'm funny.
The stated reason is that the CDC wanted healthcare workers to get back to work a little bit sooner, right? That we're dealing with a big doctor and nurse shortage right now. So by reducing the quarantine time by a bit, you cycle a little bit faster with the sicknesses in the medical profession, meaning they can get back to work faster, right?
I don't mean to nitpick here, but I'm not aware of some big shortage of healthcare workers out there. I've heard that certain areas obviously have people that are out. There's people who've retired. There's people who quit because they couldn't get the vaccine. Those that didn't want to get the vaccine. Those are very small people, though. Small amount of people.
Oh, I thought it was a shortage of active healthcare workers, right? Like, it's not that we have fewer people whose job is healthcare work. It's that there are fewer able to work because they keep fucking getting COVID, right? Because they're in the hospitals and stuff.
I'm not aware of some huge shortage of nurses. There are like nurses and doctors that have quit to go work in other areas because you can get more money. And it is but in general, there is, it's a worker's market right now where you're able to command more money and better conditions and better benefits. So but I'm not aware of.
Wait, well, that would support my argument. If there's a shortage, then it would be a worker's market. If there's a need for additional healthcare workers, that would be the market force that would give them that relative leverage, right?
Some huge shortage of workers. And as we saw in that clip by Fauci, this is about essential workers, which is more than just doctors and nurses and hospital staff. That includes everything from bus drivers to grocery store clerks, on and on.
You guys are following this? We talked about, like, well, would it have been logistically possible for them to do that only for healthcare workers, but not for like other types of workers? Wouldn't that kind of be an implicit indication that, you know, we're throwing the healthcare workers to the dogs? I don't really know. I haven't looked into it that thoroughly. And also, this is being based on information I don't really have access to. The
What's up,
fact of the
Samantha?
matter is that the CDC did take into account corporate interests when making their decision, but it's never just that simple, because
where is the evidence to make that implication? Like, corporate America is a stakeholder in America, in our society.
access indication that, you know, we're throwing the healthcare workers to the dogs. I don't really know. I haven't looked into it that thoroughly. And also, this is being based on information I don't really have access to. The
What's up,
fact of the
Samantha?
matter is that the CDC did take into account corporate interests when making their decision, but it's never just that simple, because
where is the evidence to make that implication? Like, corporate America.
Wait, but he acknowledged it already. Wait, the idea that the CDC takes into consideration corporate interests when making their decisions shouldn't be a controversial take. I mean, they have to. America is just a large collection of corporations wearing a government hat. I mean, it's like, it has to. That's pretty much everything does, right?
America is a stakeholder in America, in our society functioning. I'm sorry, but people love eating Oreos. People like watching stuff on the internet. Like, it's just part of life. You know what I mean? Not everything that's essential is can be just written off for the public health. Like, public health is much bigger than just hospitals and making sure you're functioning. Like, mental health's a big deal. You know, we got to keep Netflix going. We got to keep a lot of things going that don't seem essential, but like, society would fall apart without a lot of these things. I don't mean to say that society's going to fall apart without Netflix, but I mean, if we just shut down the whole country out of an abundance of caution because we want 10 days for all workers just to make sure nobody is harmed, that's going to harm a lot of other people.
I feel like this is a bad time for this kind of messaging. The timing is off. I don't know what argument he's making. I'm not saying that we don't need the economy to function. I mean, we do.
Well, in other ways, you know? This might be preemptive strike, put plans in place now just in case a lot of people get sick, not to overload hospitals. I don't know if it's a concern of overloading hospitals. I know what you're saying, but I think it's just more about like society staying up, because so many people are going to get Omicron in the next 6 weeks that you could just see certain sectors shutting down, like the meatpacking industry or farming or something. And like, that could have some pretty serious problems on society.
any decision the CDC ever makes with regards to quarantine times is going to be influenced by the practical reality that people do.
Okay, I'm not necessarily arguing against this, but the logic here is literally increasing COVID cases might shut down the economy, so the only thing we can do is get those sick people back to work faster to multiply the number of sick people. It is... I mean, I feel like we might be feeding the beast a little bit here.
To eventually need to go back to work, that the system does need to keep on functioning, because if it doesn't, you have very serious problems for everyone. So that's the...
Yeah, IRI is an accelerationist. Holy shit, you know? We talk down on liberals, but goddamn. He's this ultimate fucking COVID hitting the brakes forward. I've said this. I'm ambivalent on the CDC's decision. Okay. Okay. Have you guys played the game Frostpunk? It's this city management game of building a frozen city at the end of the world. And basically, I feel like we're at the end of that point right now. We're at the point of the game where the temperature is negative 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and we need to start eating the people to survive, you know? We're at the point where we're sending 10-year-olds to the coal mines at 3 a.m. so we can continue to feed the generator to keep the houses just above freezing, you know? We're at emergency shift territory, right? Yeah, eat the sawdust. We're at the part where we're running lumber mills not for construction, but just so we have enough sawdust to pack into the bread. Okay, that's what we're up to right now. It's soup time. It's not good. It's not good, okay, guys?
The point that I'm making here. Now, Hasan simply tweeted,
Okay, well, yeah, Hasan's take too.
simply tweeted, Delta Airlines asking for the quarantine time to be reduced, and the CDC reducing the quarantine time, which does kind of make it seem, at least through implication, that it was just Delta that did it. But I feel like this is a really easy win from Hasan's case. Like, really, really easy if he talked with TwoMad, you know? Make it seem...
That's Dr. TwoMad. Let's put some respect on his name. That's the best nickname to come out of this whole drama. Dr. TwoMad. I thought TwoMad was funny about this whole thing. Boop. Did you guys see his video? Boop. 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 Dr. TwoMad.
I have not seen
I'm not going to relitigate the whole Hasan TwoMad drama. I'm sorry if you guys don't know about it. You got to go check it out. I'm not going to get into it. But basically, TwoMad challenged Hasan to a debate, and Hasan said,
I talked about this.
you know, I'm not going to talk to you or something. I don't know. It was just
CDC and whatever. But there's not denying that there's made it. Yeah, to me. Okay, let's run it through here.
look at this. People said I'm not going to look at Hasan's point of view. I'm looking at it right now. I'm
We're
getting
going to go through the whole tweet. Okay, I'm just going to move this just quickly.
through Vaush's lens.
To see her unavailable. This is no one IRI affected CDC isolation.
In what stream did you talk about TwoMad? Watch all my streams, including my video game streams. Hello, Pigeon. Wait.
TwoMad called you bait on Twitter.
TwoMad called me based?
Yeah, remember?
No? When?
It was like after one of the charity streams or something. He was just like based.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, it was a while ago.
Whatever. I don't have some crazy hate boner for TwoMad or anything. TwoMad's video on Lucio, way back in the day before he really got big, he's still like working off of the good vibes from that.
Guidelines, especially since they've essentially admitted that's the case. Do you do this?
Public lives depend on it. Society, Fauci.
Protect the economy. So
That's not what the CDC said, though. Unless there's some press release that I'm missing or something like that. I believe that Dr. Fauci was sent out there to clarify why the CDC lowered the quarantine time from 10 to 5 days. And we saw Dr. Fauci explaining that this is to keep society functioning. Now, I don't see anything there about protecting the economy. I mean, phrasing it like that sounds
This is semantic. That's what that means. Keeping society functioning by keeping the economy running.
like they are putting corporate profits over public health. But I personally think the economy needs to be protected, though, too. I mean, that we need to get the hell out of this mess, and we need to get our economy chugging along. People's lives depend on it. Kids need to.
The problem with this line here is that this is, with respect, a very liberal way of thinking, where the solution to the problem of managing public health while keeping the economy running is a binary switch between, more quarantine time or less quarantine time. The CDC is a government institution. The real solution here, the real thing that we're entitled to, the real thing that we deserve, is a strong, federally mandated COVID lockdown program that provides rations to people, that does everything we were promised or that we should have done at the very beginning of the pandemic. Things that worked in countries that didn't have rapid, exploding case numbers. Will that ever pass through Congress? Fucking no. But the issue here is the expanse of our imagination. Pigeon, don't be annoying. And it's not like you're going to fix the economy by getting, triple the number of people sick. We're really just kicking the can down the line here, I think. We'll see.
Go to school. Kids need to get meals at school. People need to be able to pursue degrees and education. People need to be able to live their lives. People need to be out there meeting people. People need to be out there going to high school dances. People need to just get back to life. And the economy is a big, big part of that. And the economy also...
Again, I really don't think this is the time for the getting back to life messaging. Remember when people were talking about just getting back to life around here in like March and April when we were at 1/10 the COVID cases? Remember when people were spraying down the handles of their grocery bags back then? Excuse me.
Also helps people a lot, right? This is how people get out of poverty. People are able to get government services, So I don't believe in this idea that the economy is just there to produce money. That is a part of it, but Hasan is framing it like this was all done for profits. And look, I think the airline industry is important. I think that the domestic airline industry is very important to keep things moving in this country. People need to be able to travel. People need to be able to travel for business, but also for pleasure and to see family. I mean, it's an important part of life.
Pardon me for channeling Joseph Stalin right now, but I actually don't think so. I actually think that morally you could justify shutting down all non-essential services right now. I think you could justify that. Again, it's not going to happen, but yeah. Again, like this is just a really weird time for the whole it's time to go back to normal. I know I keep going over here, but 500,000 new cases in one day. Look at the bubble. Look at this bubble. What the fuck? Look at this. 4.5 million total cases in 2 weeks. And it's only going to get worse, too.
To be able to fly home for the holidays and see your parents is a big part of being a human in this world that we live in. And if thousands of flights are being canceled because the CDC's guidelines are too long, that impacts all of us. And that's exactly what was happening, that there were thousands of flights being canceled right around the holidays and continue to be canceled. And so if the airline industry isn't able to function properly, that's miserable. That has waves that ripple throughout all of society. So again, I think it's very nitpicky, or I don't know what the right word would be to use here, but to frame it as it's just about the...
It's worth noting deaths aren't nearly as bad as the case spike. Yeah, but that's not the bar, right? That shouldn't be our bar, right? I mean, deaths have mostly flattened. It's mostly the unvaccinated who are dying now. But if these wave of vaccination, breakthrough cases keep cycling and cycling and cycling, I mean, it's not good.
The dollar bills, I don't think it is. I don't think the CDC makes a decision that, hey, Delta Airlines needs to meet their third quarter projections here. We better put pressure. CEO of Delta better put pressure on CDC to make sure we make our money. It just seems very.
Wait, hold on. Corporations will absolutely think, hey, we need to meet our quarterly projections. Let's put pressure on government institutions that have the power to make us more money. It would be dumb if they didn't. That's like, why wouldn't they do that?
Well, I don't know if short-sighted is the right word, but it seems just to kind of it seems to ignore a lot of other things that are happening,
Corporations short-sightedly pursuing profit? That'd be wacky.
The only thing that he's really expressing here, I guess, is kind of incredulity, I think. Like, basically, the Trump's
trust in government institutions. And
TwoMad.
I would disagree. I think this is a pretty good argument from TwoMad right here. Again, it comes down to public trust in government institutions. And Hasan's implication that the CDC has been pressured by corporate America to make a decision that affects your health is eroding public trust in government institutions. Now, I understand there's a degree of healthy skepticism that everybody has a right to have and is probably okay to have. But in the end, you need to trust your government institutions. I'm sorry. There's always going to be corrupt actors. There's always going to be bad apples. But overall, the institutions you have to believe are there for good. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you because you're living.
Isn't that a very limited perspective ideologically? Like, you have to believe that, like, not even to see, because I do think the CDC is generally a beneficial institution, but think of the history of all the governments and all of human history. Like, do you really think all of them had institutions that were working for good? Like this just seems very naive. Like, well, what do you do if they're not? Like, why do you have to believe that? Like, what? Like, that just seems like a very weird, like, axiom to start with. Like, well, this is something you have to believe. Why? Why do you have to believe that? But also the idea that government institutions are influenced by corporate, like, profit seeking or corporate interests shouldn't be controversial. It's just true. I really do not think the statement the government listens to corporate interests and is influenced by them is comparable to COVID-19 is a hoax that was made by Fauci to make the Democrats win the election, and the election was false and blah blah. Like, yeah, I don't think those are comparable statements in any way.
In a hellscape that you've created in your own mind, and that you need to get way more involved in order to push things to be good, because I don't want to live in a world where I doubt my government agencies are looking out for my good. That's not good.
I feel like there are some flaws in that thought process.
That's not a good place to be in mentally at all, and it's a scary place to be. And so I agree with TwoMad that
Maybe
Hasan
it is a little bit.
and his corporate interests are the motivating factor behind CDC's decisions is no better than Trump supporters calling it a plandemic, because both of these things erode trust in government. And I'm curious to hear why.
This is really dumb. Eroding trust in government can be done for good or for bad reasons. This would be like saying reporting on Watergate is exactly the same as like claiming that the 2020 election was stolen, because both of them erode faith in government. Like that, like that's not, like that's ridiculous. Okay.
Vaush thinks this is a mad argument. I mean, yeah, okay, the way he worded it, okay, that's one thing.
Wilma called you a fashion trend. Who's Wilma?
But, whatever.
The vaccine hesitancy has to do with conspiracies surrounding the vaccine specifically, not general suspicion towards the pharmaceutical industry or towards the intentions of the CDC.
Well,
I don't think this is a fair
gotcha.
comparison to make.
I think I would disagree with that. I don't want to disagree with Vaush. Again, I like Vaush a lot. I think Vaush is quite educated on these topics. I think there's a lot of anti-Fauci rhetoric out there, and that represents the CDC.
Dr. Fauci.
And I think that a lot of these people not taking the vaccine believe that the pharma is just trying to profit off turning us into guinea pigs, and it comes down to money. They don't think there's any other greed. Like, I guess some of them say it's about government control, but why does it?
Well, the difference is that narrative is stupid and incoherent. The idea that they would do a fake vaccine to control people is like incoherent, like FEMA camp genocide conspiracy bullshit. Whereas the idea that government institutions listen to corporate interests is an objective fact of reality. It's not just like a thing that happens. It's literally the way the system is supposed to work. Government institutions have to take into consideration a bunch of factors that might influence the outcomes of their decision. And pretty much the strongest single collective entity in America is corporate interest. Of course they would do that. It would be ridiculous for them not to. Can you imagine if like government institutions like the Department of like Transportation and Agriculture were making decisions about like a bunch of regulation stuff, and then it like made no sense and like nothing worked, and people were like, why didn't this work? And they were like, oh, well, we didn't listen to any of the transportation companies or any of the agricultural companies. We just like did whatever, you know. Like, of course they do. They have to. It's their job. The economic productivity of this country is its backbone. Of course, these institutions are going to work with the entities in the economy. Vaush, aren't you technically doing a Monta Bailey by making your argument that corporate interests influence the government? No, that's not a Monta Bailey. That's a Mott. It's the same argument that I made. The idea that the CDC's newest guidelines have been influenced by a consideration for corporate interest that's the Mott. That's the Mott and Mott. Or the Bailey and Bailey, perhaps. You know, it's one Mott, two Mott. You know, excuse me.
The government want to control you, if not to make money off you, and be like, people don't just want to be in power to be in power. Some do, sure.
Can we not dump on IRI? But I really like IRI, by the way. But guys, I just want to say, okay, there's like a reciprocal, there's like an other side to this, okay? I know right now you guys are like choking on lib juice or whatever, but like keep in mind that right now on Twitter there are thousands of communists who have no fucking idea how the government works, okay? IRI knows more about how the government functions than like the vast overwhelming majority of people on the left. And if you tune into his stream, you'll actually see him talking about real politics. It's like a really cool dude. You know, it's very much a, you know, a devilish bargain. You know, you either understand politics but have bad positions on them, or you don't and you have good positions. It's very much the coin flip. Of course, you know, it wasn't for me. I chose both, to understand and to have good positions, you know. When the devil flipped the coin, I grabbed it out of the air because I choose my own destiny.
Sure, but it's usually about gaining something. They don't want to just lord over people for no reason. They want them to do what they want and believe what they believe. So, I don't know.
Now, you can argue that undue skepticism towards the CDC with regards to corporate influence can lead to conspiracy mongering or bad stuff like that, but I don't think
that's what I'm doing.
I don't think this is close enough. I don't think so. I don't. I think this is a big reach, basically. And then
well, I guess my question to Vaush would be, don't you think both of them erode public trust in government institutions? And
yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But not to the same degree and not for the same reasons. And in one case it's good and in one case it's bad.
And isn't that just as bad? One may do it more than another, but we're supposed to be on the good side here. We're supposed to be the good guys, and we're supposed to be fighting for more trust in government.
No. This isn't a we thing. No. Okay. My opposition to COVID-19 conspiracy theories and the 2020 election fraud bullshit has nothing to do with defending the legitimacy of government. Those are just incidental consequences of that. I just think they're wrong. You know, I don't like the government. I'm okay with people distrusting it. In fact, I think distrust of government is a morally good thing. I think you should always be distrustful of power. And the American government is the most powerful institution to have ever existed in the history of all of humanity. It's an overwhelmingly powerful monolithic organization that has, reaches across the globe. I'm okay with people distrusting the government. They just have to distrust it for the right reasons,
In order to expand government services, how are you going to get people to accept Medicare for all when you're telling them that the CDC is corrupt? I mean,
because they're different things. Because lefties, the ones that are saying that the CDC is wrong with this most recent change, would still accept Medicare for all. That's the difference. There's a difference between wrong distrust of the government and right distrust of the government. People like me, who distrust the government generally, but are still okay with Medicare for all, are different from people like, I don't know, your average, thin blue line dipshit who distrusts the government, but worships cops, but also, won't take Medicare for all because they think that a death panel will inject Bill Gates' microchip into their arm. The difference here isn't trust in government. The difference here is whether you're batshit insane or not.
I know the two agencies are different, but it's hard to argue for more government involvement in people's lives if you're not making a good case for the government being a good actor.
Yeah, you can.
Kind of weird, man.
No, you totally can.
Respond.
Wait, don't make their argument for them.
Yes, it's actually Trump supporters who are in favor of continuing restrictions famously. Just come on stream if you want to clearly communicate your position rather than posturing with weird Twitter takes.
I didn't know that Hasan said that. Okay, and as far as I know, TwoMad was in his chat and DMing him saying, I'm ready to go, bring me on.
Mad,
and Hasan
TwoMad.
refused to, after saying publicly on Twitter, just come on my stream if you want to clearly communicate. So yeah, I mean, I see why people are giving Hasan a hard time about dodging TwoMad. I mean, he said it publicly right here, come on my stream. TwoMad said, sure. That's my understanding.
I think this is a really bad response. First of all, he's not addressing the core, really address, I think, is the issue here.
But I think to know what Monta Bailey is, if I'm even saying that correctly.
Oh, a little bit of actually, it's a massive Monta Bailey from TwoMad. So first of all,
I don't know what Monta Bailey is, if I'm even saying that correctly. Yes,
This is the truth. By the way, this is how you know a person does actual politics and not stupid debate bro politics. Unironically, okay? The greatest mind is the greatest political mind is one who knows the name of every senator and doesn't know the name of a single fallacy, okay? Unironically. This is not a person who touches grass, okay? IRI fucks grass, all right? IRI has a deep relationship with multiple parks, okay?
obviously an escalation by TwoMad, and that kind of shuts down the rhetoric right there. But I think TwoMad's making a valid point as far as the CDC goes, you know? Mott and Bailey, I don't know what that is. Vaush uses a lot of terms that are big terms I don't understand. Mott Bailey. I don't know. I try to speak to the everyman. I try to dumb down my language so I could speak to the everyman. What is the function of CDC? I'm pretty sure it's not to run a message of getting people back to work. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I mean, words because basically a bait and switch. Okay, fair enough. As we've seen by him being booed recently when he suggests people go get the booster. But yeah, they think that big pharma is in control of the federal government, making billions of.
You can see the DGGers in chat. Vaush has to use words no one knows because he can't pronounce any words people do know. Wait, hold on. That might be you guys. Hold on. I might have run off too quickly with that one. Is this a person who watches both of us? This is actually a perfect blend. The first half of this is peak DGG, and the second half is peak VGG. I think this might be. I think this might be an enlightened centrist. I respect that.
Dollars on our and treating us like guinea pigs, right? That's why they want us to have 10 boosters because they get more money. That's what people on the right or vaccine skeptics believe.
This bit here is, I think, a huge escalation in antagonism to defend. An institution, to some extent or another, is compromised by corporate interests. Yes, that's like yes, very straight.
Compromised is a strong word, Vaush. Is that? I just want to hear that again. Hold on. I want to make sure I heard. I'm hearing the right words.
Play it again.
Which,
preach.
Yes, I do think that essentially every government institution, to some extent or another, is compromised by corporate interests. Yes.
Compromised to some degree. Okay. Well, that's a bit of a gives them a bit of wiggle room there. So it could be that government corporate interest control 3 employees at the CDC out of thousands, or they have some sort of event they throw every year and people come for the party, like a Discord party at TwitchCon or something, right? Then you could say like Discord has influence on Twitch streamers.
Well, no, it's just corporate interests work with government agencies. There are a ton of ways this can happen, right? I mean, you've got obvious stuff like lobbying, I guess, but I think the strongest one is just the understanding that these agencies have to perform well, and to perform well, they have to work with the tools they're given, and the tools that they're given are usually corporate in nature. right? Like any, hold on, my hands are cold. I know a window's open. This is basically the Coconut Island analogy all over again, all right? So imagine that you're a government institution, okay? Let's make up a government institution so we can detach this entirely from any existing political biases. Let's say there's a government institution that regulates and the manufacture, the production, the sale of candles. Just candles, that's it. Just specifically that, okay? The production of the wax, the quality of the wax, scents, everything, shape of candle, that's what they do. Now, let's say for some reason this is a very important institution. Let's say this matters a lot to people, okay? So anyway, here's the issue, okay? The federal agency, which regulates candles in this respect, has a tremendous amount of power when it comes to what types of wax can be used, the consistency, you know, let's even say selling price, even though that's not something really government institutions can control for most things. The problem is that they aren't regulating for shits and giggles. They're regulating so that they can produce positive outcomes for the United States, right? So maybe there are lots of things that the candle regulating institution think would be beneficial. Maybe there are certain restrictions or guidelines. Let's say that the candle regulating institution thinks that America would be better if all candles had to be the tall, skinny ones. Okay? You know what I mean? Like the cool ones that you find at like the monasteries and stuff where they light a bunch of them and the wax strips down really quickly. You know, they think that would be really cool. And in fact, Candle Chairman Artemy has a really great internal document that he writes, which proves in no uncertain terms that, yes, actually, if all candles in the United States were the tall, skinny ones, things would be better. It's pretty easy to see, actually. The issue is that this institution doesn't actually sell any candles, it just regulates them. Corporations sell these candles, multi-billion-dollar corporations, staffed, run by thousands of people, many of whom have some contacts in Washington, either through their wealth or just existent political connections. And those candle manufacturing companies do not want to only sell small, skinny ones. They also want to sell big, fat ones. Big, fat like Artemy, you see. Now, here's the issue, okay? We have an inherent conflict of interest here. You have the economic interests of the corporations who want to sell X and Y, and then you have the proposed mandate from the regulatory institution. Now, if the regulatory institution just went ahead with the mandate, what do you think would happen? Serious question, by the way. What do you think would happen? Well, a lot of bad things could happen. First of all, there would probably be a huge economic crisis in the candle industry because a ton of products that used to be viable would suddenly no longer be, you know. You could even see, for instance, maybe the candle manufacturers would go on news channels, speak with anchors, make public pleas. Why are these government regulators taking away our big fat candles? You know, you can even imagine that internally they might be able to, you know, incentivize researchers to start producing evidence that actually the big fat candles are better and such. So you have something which would be objectively good, you know, the regulation of the candles, making them all small and skinny, being hampered by corporate interests, by profiteering. Now, everything that I'm describing right now essentially did happen in like every government institution with like a ton of shit. If you want to go back and look at agricultural regulations, yeah, light bulbs. If you want to take a look at construction materials, you know, remember asbestos, food, oil, coal, natural gas, fruit, everything, okay? Time and time again, you know, a government agency will think, oh God, wait, this is bad. This is not good. This is quite bad, actually. And then the government agency will look up and realize, oh, but we have to get through them to make a change. And the them are the corporations making billions and billions of dollars from things being the way they are right now. Regulations rarely make more money for those being regulated. That's why they're regulations and not just things that happen naturally out of a pre-existing profit interest. Do you guys understand? That's what I mean by
compromised. Now, what I'm talking about right now isn't conspiracy. This is literally like the very basic foundation of political economy, that there are competing interests. And because I'm a lefty, I'm not a big fan of what corporate interests have done to this country. I think they've been overwhelmingly negative in a great many cases, which is why I use the term compromise instead of influenced by. Compromise has kind of a negative connotation, so I go by that. But I stand by it, you know. Yeah, regulatory capture is another evocative term.
Or something. Or you could argue that the CDC is completely compromised and companies like Delta Airlines can have them bend to their will and do whatever they want, right? Like that gives you a huge spectrum to live on. I just think it's a little strange to throw out this sort of conspiracy stuff that government.
One of the things that bothers me the most about liberals is that they've reframed basic political theory as conspiracy, you know? Like this same thing happened when I was talking about like the idea of like scapegoating in politics through the rotating villain strategy. It's like, it's not conspiracy. It's not, something isn't a conspiracy because you're saying a thing that you're saying to that there are influences. Like this is just how things work. It's just how it works. This is how everything works. It's how it's always worked. It's how it always will work. It's how things work, you know?
Institutions are compromised at all by corporate interests. I think the terminology is wrong. Corporate interests have a seat at the table. I hate to break it to people, but corporate interests are a stakeholder in every facet of society, whether you like it or not. Businesses play a role, and they have a right to. They have a right to, you know, they have a seat at the table, and it's not for their profit, but a lot of these businesses are part of our economy and our functioning society. And
by making a profit, that's what they do. How long before I get called a conspiracy theorist for saying that corporations are motivated by profit? When the shareholders can literally sue the CEO if they don't act out of a sufficient profit interest or act against it severely enough, you know, you have literally a legal obligation to fulfill a profit interest
and contribute to GDP, obviously, and keep.
I think that's a myth. Wait, is that? No, I'm pretty sure. Hasn't that literally happened? Hold on. Yeah. Okay. State codes, similarly, corporations form for any law for business. Corporate charters, public firms. Let me see. Corporate case law describes directors as fiduciaries who owe duties not only to shareholders, but also the corporate entity himself, and instructs directors to use their powers in, quote, the best interest of the company. This is such a remarkable shit-libby fucking semantic take. Corporations don't have to maximize profit. There's a common belief that corporate directors have a legal duty to maximize corporate profits and shareholder value, even if this means skirting ethical rules, damaging the environment, or harming employees. But this belief is utterly false. And then one paragraph later, instructs directors to use their powers in the best interest of the company. What the fuck does the best interest of the company have to do with environmental or ethical guidelines? Yeah, like, I don't, best interest.
People housed and keep people fed, and like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Obviously, if we look at something like lobbying in Congress, you can paint a bad picture, and I agree that lobbying is heavily sided towards corporations, where I wish other stakeholders in society also had the same degree of lobbying, which is a problem, and that's why people like Elizabeth Warren want to outlaw lobbying completely. And I agree, the state of lobbying right now is ridiculous. Like, poor people don't have a voice in the halls of Congress. The homeless don't have a voice. Right? It's all just whoever's rich and can afford to have people taking out Congress members to lunch and parties. And of course, they're going to have the ear of these people and people able to arrange fundraisers and help get these people elected, right? Like, if homeless people had a lobby, they would probably have some more influence and people would care more. But the fact of the matter is that corporate interests have a seat at the table, and they always will. And even if we had socialism, and I'm going to word this terribly, but even if we had worker-owned companies, they would have a seat at the table too, right? And they would have their own economic interest for their worker-owned companies that they care about. That does involve profit. That does involve them attaining more resources or whatever. It is what it is. It's not going to go away.
That's like, yeah, well, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't. But yeah, that's my point.
I don't like the term "a seat at the table" though, because when you hear the term "a seat at a table," it kind of implies that there are a bunch of people there and you just have a seat. But I don't think corporations have a seat at the table on like anything that our government does. I think they have like a gilded throne that like 8 slaves carry in on a palisade that they set on top of the table. You know, it's they have, I'd say, quite a lot of influence. They're quite powerful, you know. Yeah, it's their table. It's, you know, not to say they're the only influence or anything, but they don't have, it's not like there are 20 different interests and corporations are like the 1/20th slice or anything, you know. They're quite powerful. It's like
Not necessarily a bad thing.
straightforwardly. Yes, now the extent to which and the effects that has will vary, and you can be different levels of butt fucking insane with that kind of stuff. But you agree on a thing with Trump? Yeah, exactly. So really, really goofy stuff there. But and then anyway, so I think this is a really bad response from TwoMad. And then Hasan responds, and I was right to say
This exchange between Dr. TwoMad and Hasan does not warrant this level of analysis. I'm sorry. I feel like Vaush is really stretching here to break down this discussion here. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think this is just two guys who got heated. And in the end, Hasan said, come on my stream. And then TwoMad said something rude. And Hasan doubled down and said, all I'm hearing is cowardly posturing behind the computer.
He's calling me
saying,
autistic.
come talk to me
You
again.
hear that? This
That's
is
all I'm
ableism.
seeing here. I don't think there's a need to read much more into this. And in the end, Hasan did not bring TwoMad on his stream. So I feel like Dr. TwoMad ended up walking away with the W on this.
Well, wait, to be fair, Destiny and TwoMad were planning on doing an "Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a nightmare" moment with him. To be fair, Hasan called TwoMad out for doing that, and Hasan was right. So, yeah.
This one, I hate to say it, because even if TwoMad's argument was ridiculous, which you're more than welcome to think it is, I find myself agreeing with TwoMad more than disagreeing. Hasan challenged him to come on his stream, and he didn't. I mean, come on. I mean, unless TwoMad is faking the logs and never reached out to him or something. Hasan was scared TwoMad was going to Sam Cedar him with Destiny. Okay, I did see that angle on it, but that would have been up to Hasan to just hang up on Destiny and say, TwoMad, I told you I'd talk to you. I'm not interested in talking to Destiny. I have my own personal reasons why. I've offered to talk to you. If you want to try again, I will talk to you. Like, why would you avoid the whole conversation?
I would actually agree with that if Hasan had the emotional control to do that. If Hasan, I feel Hasan's a very emotional guy, right? Like, I feel like I don't think he could keep himself from high-pitched caterwauling at Destiny the moment he said, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" But if he was able to keep cool and just be like, what would the cool guy line be? "You got off at the wrong stop, buckaroo. Shortsville is that way." And then kicked him from the there we go. That would be good.
With TwoMad because of a concern that Destiny's going to jump on the mic. Just hang up on Destiny the second he comes on and then say, okay, are you ready to try this again? What's happening here? I have no interest in talking to Destiny, which Hasan doesn't have to talk to anybody. It's up to him. Easiest resolution to this would be to review the CDC's published medical evidence that the revised quarantine guidelines are evidence-based. Very easy to do. Well, you know, there's the gray area that the CDC's corrupted, and in a smoke-filled room, they made a deal with Delta Airlines. You know, I mean,
come on. This is also a very liberal thing. Say, like, this is what I'm like, hey, corporate interests influence that, and then it's like, okay, so they literally went to the conspiracy room, and the corporation showed them a photo of JFK in his car moments before being shot, but from an angle you've never seen before, and the CDC director looked at it with his hand shaking and immediately said, I'll do whatever you want. Like, no, it's just how it works,
Hasan is implying that, and there's no way to disprove that, but I think it's a ridiculous position to take because there's nothing to prove it.
Uncle memes like a Groiper neckbeard. This is very stupid from Hasan, and it just makes him look really fucking salty. Making fun of Hasan's uncle is not a Groiper. First of all, Groiper neckbeard? Groipers aren't even old enough to grow neckbeards. Second of all, what the fuck does that... This is like...
Open, basically calling them a white nationalist. Like, what?
Stuff all around. And now they're not even...
and people are going to make fun of you, and I don't want anybody getting made fun of, The
decision to, unconventionally, the CDC never released...
Doesn't validate your opinion that corporate America controlled this decision solely for profit. That just because of those things, those are nice facts. You could add to the list that I ate an everything bagel with cream cheese this morning. Like, so what? What does any of this have to do to validate the point that the CDC is corrupt? Nothing. Like, they didn't release the data.
Why the term corrupt? Okay, I want to be really clear about this, okay? The idea that an institution would be influenced by corporate decision making isn't corruption. It is literally the explicit way in which this is supposed to work. It's not that this isn't even like some lefty critique. It is how do you expect a government institution which rules on things that have an influence on the economy to not make their decisions without taking into consideration the abilities and desires of the economic institutions that they're affecting? Do you not think that like regulatory or like financiers are influenced by Wall Street? Do you not think that like all these departments, like what about the Department of Defense? Do you not think the Department of Defense is a little bit influenced perhaps by like Raytheon and other military industrial manufacturers, developers, and so on, right? Just perhaps a little bit, maybe a bit of historical. The thing is, like, they say it's conspiracy now, but if you go back just a little bit in the past, like, all this stuff is really, really uncontroversial, right? I mean, if you go back in the 1940s and 50s, you can basically find plenty of government documents, exposés, research, everything showing, like, yeah, corporations and the government literally just, like, talk to each other and just make decisions about stuff. We don't vote on everything. We don't have, like, referendums in every decision the government makes. Like, you don't think that, like, maybe our politicians are a little bit influenced by external forces when they just completely uncritically vote in budget increases to our military every single fucking year? Like, it's like, but that's not corruption. Every government is going to work this way. Every single government, whether it be communist or capitalist or feudal or whatever, is going to have its government functions heavily affected by the interests of the economic actors at play, whether they are mercantilist corporations, modern day companies, or potential future anarcho-syndicalist communes or whatever. It doesn't matter. There will always be that influence. The difference here, the lines are as follows: how significant is the influence? How destructive is the influence, and how transparent is the influence? Those are the things that matter. Right now, in the current day, I think we have a fairly low amount of transparency, just I think because of how complicated these systems are, how many corporate actors there are, how many considerations there are to take. Transparency does matter a lot. In terms of how harmful this influence is, I actually think it's on the mid to low spectrum compared to a lot of other countries. There are countries that have been butt-fucked by the IMF, whose government can't raise a fucking finger because they know that they live or die based on the goodwill of the corporations that they've deregulated over there, or foreign investors, right? Like, in terms of how significantly a government is influenced by these other things, like, I actually think there are companies or countries in a way worse position. But we have to be honest about this. It's not corruption. It's just how these things work. Oh, also, don't bully IRI. Seriously, I like IRI, okay? Just chill. 1 second. I hear pigeons.